Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there in FAF. A few days ago, I casted an Average Joe's Setons. Gotta untie my tongue here, haven't been talking for a while. Since I did an Average Joe's Setons, I figured that I should do at least one high rank. This is a Seton match containing all of the who's who's in the Setons world. On the southern team, we have Foley, Zakizak, Kajita, and Ish. And on the northern team, we have Galactic Fear, Hokuto Ryokan, Newton per square meter, and Laneless. Galactic Fear, definitely a well-known name on the Setons map. Foley is a long-time player as well, and everyone knows Zakizak. I have not watched this replay. It will be as much a surprise to me as it is to you who wins, but I did check the timer. I'm going to watch the initial build orders, and then I'm going to try to burn as much of this as I possibly can because this is a 45-minute plus game, so I will try not to bore you. I am tempted to think that this was an all-randoms match, considering the fact that we have a Cyber in front and a Seraphim Air. Kind of odd choices, but I cannot swear by that. On the front, we have a typical build Land Factory run forward for both of the front players, followed by an Engineer, a Scout, and there the identical matchup stops because we do have a Hunter out for Foley. As far as rock goes, typical build here, we see the first Engineer moving forward to reclaim these little rocks up here. Tons of mass in this. Interesting little wall section over here. Not sure what that is all about. Probably drop denial. And then massive power spam. Gonna go for air as early as possible to try to lock down that island. Hokuto is also pulling a similar build that he is getting earlier air factory. You can see his Engineer down here as well. You can overbuild power when you have that much reclaim and not have to worry about your mass extractors. On the beach, pushing air as early as possible once again. The goal of beach is to steal this away from the rock because you have to get that eco advantage. Rock is a much stronger position to play Navy from. Over here, Laneless has actually beaten his opponent to air. There is not an air factory down or even planned for Ish, and here we have a Scout out building an interceptor to try to lock down that air factory, I would imagine, and throwing up a second air factory for good measure. Definitely going after a strong air game. On the rear, we have the two giants, Zakizak and Galactic Fear. Zakizak has chosen Seraphim. First land, dropping down a tier 2 mechs off of the manual reclaim. Both teams will be getting an influx of mass momentarily from the middle. And then immediately going to an air factory. Similar but not identical build from Galactic Fear. He is working on his second, third, and fourth tier 2. Bouncing positive mass, I am sure, from that reclaim coming in from front. And then also pulling in a lot of manual reclaim. You can see how these Engineers are dropping down these little bunches of trees on their way to claiming mexes and factories. Alright, there is the intro. Bomber out for Kajita. Going to try and deny that potential transport. And here we have something interesting. The transport has gone to mid from Hokuto. Not sure what he's planning with this. Getting a little extra reclaim. That is an extremely odd choice. I have no idea. He has a second transport. That is something you do not see every day. The Scout for Laneless is going to miss that transport. But it must have winged it. Laneless taking a guess as to where the transport is, but that transport is going to be able to drop its Engineers. Bad miscalculation on the part of Laneless. I'm going to go ahead and bump this to +4, guys. I'm going to apologize in advance if I miss anything, but I would rather not waste your time on an hour game and miss one or two little things than burn an hour and 15 minutes watching this game and watch every little detail. On the front, I'm going to take a quick comparison. Newton per square meter has nabbed 8,000 of the center mass as opposed to 5 for Foley. In addition, Hokuto nabbed a couple of the wrecks out of mid, so that is a massive early mass advantage going to the northern team. Laneless is apparently upset about losing that island because he has decided that a massive wave of T1 bombers is a good idea. He's going to do everything he can to knock out the build power up here, take away any chance of getting... Oh, the anti-air did get up. That is going to put a damper on his plans. A drop coming in composed of engineers and a Mantis or two, it appears, on its way over along with more bombers. Both teams doing a pretty good job of scouting each other. Got pretty much everything nailed down, all of the vital areas. Now there is a problem on Ish's hands. He has 3 Mantis and 3 engineers on his island, and his factory is now locked. That may be a steal accomplished by Laneless. That was some pretty impressive work with those bombers and that drop. Very aggressive gameplay. He's going to drop 2 land factories. Going to make doubly sure that he's able to produce enough units to lock that down. Ish is returning the favor, sending in, using them like mercies. Throwing away those T1 bombers, trying to lock this down. And also spamming Auroras. That is a unique choice. I would imagine that he has assumed that Laneless has sunken his mass into that early air. And he is going to try to get out enough units to deny this, although we do already have T2 Navy in the water for Laneless. Already drop by Hokuto. Kajita making a desperate attempt to get some point defense down, but he has failed at that. He is going to lose his T2 mechs up here. There is no doubt about it. T1 bombers harassing a lot of T1 anti-air. In addition, Galactic Fear has managed to factory lock Zaki Zak. He has gotten about 5 ASF over there before T3 air has hit for Zak. And here comes the inevitable Strat bomber. Critical hit in the early game. That is going to run all the way down the map, taking out tier 2 mechs and storage willy-nilly. Zak shielding his home mechs and building SAMs, but sadly that is going to be almost impossible for him to deny. That is going to have free reign over the map. And counterintuitively, T1 anti-air, if you do not have T3, T1 anti-air is the absolute best way to get rid of strat bombers. The direct fire anti-air is much better than flag at hitting them, and the damage per mass is actually really good for tier 1 anti-air. A lot of people don't know that. Unique choice by Foley. He has pushed out a swarm of engineers, thrown down a tier 2 factory as fast as he possibly can, and built a cruiser. He is now pushing that out over the water, trying to snag some of this air and help out his poor air player that is losing all of his mechs at the moment. Ish has done the same thing. He was able to get tier 2 Navy out pretty damn quickly following that rush of units out here, and he has thrown out 2 cruisers trying to give a front to his air player. That was a hard hit by the North team though. Galactic Fear doing an absolutely brutal amount of damage. Zaki Zak trailing behind miserably. Galactic Fear managing to pull 172 mass per tick already. He has got to have a T3 mech or 3 somewhere. There is 1. There is 2 and a third almost complete. Building a T2 transport, that is an interesting choice, and that is going to Bakudo. Ish has managed to get his island back, although he has also had to deal with some mechs being lost. He is still behind in mass. Laneless pulling 159 per tick. That is not a good sign. Cyber Navy is definitely not something that you want to have numbers on you. Aeon Navy is very strong in Tier 2, but between the Stealth and the Salem, Cybern is still just a little bit stronger. And here we have an interesting tactic going Tier 2 subs versus destroyers. When you have superior numbers, that is a good idea, but overall I would say you should always build destroyers rather than subs, unless you are versus UEF and they do not have Coopers, in which case subs are brutally effective. And in the other case, that would be Cybern Navy, which we do have in the water in a couple of places, because their Tier 2 subs do have stealth. That is a handy thing for sneaking around the outside edge of the map and killing off the rear guard. It's an easy way to catch ships alone and win naval superiority. Cybern player definitely taking full advantage of that stealth. You can see here fire coming in. You cannot see where from. No amount of scouting from the air player is going to help you in this situation. You need your own air factories pushing T1 scouts. That is a lot of mass to burn up to keep a steady stream of T1 scouts coming, but versus Cybern, you have to spend the mass because that is what makes the Cybern Navy strong. When they lose their stealth, they are beatable very easily. You have just got to push the scouts to make it happen. Ish is trying to get some hover spam out in addition to his frigates and destroyers. Cybern frigates and Salems are just so strong though, I don't think he is going to be able to overcome that disadvantage. Losing all of his destroyers in just a second. One of them has escaped momentarily, surviving on 243 health. But I just don't see how that is going to come out to be a win for Ish. He is trying to get his eco back up, dropping on the island. He's going to do some reclaiming, but things are not looking healthy at all for the North Sea. Southern Sea has 2 players in it. Oddly enough, the front player, this is a brilliant strategy right here. I'm trying to stay zoomed out a little bit so we can see the action taking place in all of these corners. Settons is a massive map, and it shows when you're trying to describe all of the action. Scrap bombers coming down now. The southern portion, gonna knock out some more mass extractors. Terrible hits on the Navy. This was an interesting tactic and highly effective. Foley jumped in the water and fronted with these Cybern Salems, which are very strong, allowing his UEF player to tech unimpeded. UEF has arguably the weakest T2 Navy. It is not good at all. They have a horrible destroyer. They do have the Tier 2 shields, but having to build 2 separate units for your torpedo damage and your surface damage is just not good at all when you're talking about mixing Navy. The fronting from these Salems has allowed Kajita to push the king of the UEF Navy, the Neptune class battle cruiser. This is the key to the UEF Navy against a Cybern player or an Aeon player, because it will be able to deny Salem's and Exodus class. A few battle cruisers covering for a summit or 2, and the T3 battleships will eventually just demolish any amount of enemy Navy. The front has fallen. Foley slightly neglecting his front end here. I would have to assume that he was planning on using these Salems to protect his front, but he's now been forced back by this massive, massive T2 sub spam. I don't know. That was a risky strategy from Mukodu, but honestly, when the Southern team does not have air to use Tort Bombers, that is a good strategy. Tort Bombers shred subs, of course, but when there is no Tort Bombers to worry about, subs are going to be very effective at denying Navy, especially when the UEF player is pushing out those battle cruisers. This is a hero brick here, 15 kills, dropping mechs all over the place, and now he is going to be sniped off by the ACU. This I have been watching for a minute. This is very surprising. Brilliant comeback by Ish. He has managed to front enough hover units that he was able to dilute the fire of these Salems, and he has been able to push the Salems back, enabling him to reclaim all of these wrecks. There is a massive amount of reclaim in this field here. Ish pushing on 10k reclaim, as opposed to Laneless. He is still ahead, sitting on 13 from his push before. I'm surprised that Ish's number is not higher. He is starting to jump. I was all ready to say, look at this reclaim, but apparently that is not the case. Really needs to get on the ball with that. Right now we are seeing a roughly even amount of Navy facing off in the northern pond, but unfortunately there is a Tempest in the water now from Mukodu. That is going to be very hard to deny unless we get a well microed. Nope. He is going for Coopers, I think. Yes, Coopers. Not the best choice. Well, he is fighting off the swarms of T2 subs. This Tempest is going to cause major problems. That was actually a really good strategy by Mukodu. Pushing that many T2 subs forced his enemy's Navy to go into full-blown sub-denial mode, and then when you drop a Tempest in the water like that, they really don't have anything to stop it, and they don't have the mass left over to try and build something. So that is forcing a severe disadvantage on the south. Galactic Fear is still far, far ahead of Zaki Zak. Poor Zak losing all of those mass extractors at the beginning of the game put him at a huge disadvantage. He has built a nuke and has a second one planned. He is probably going to try to play support as long as he can protect his navies and try to push them. The navies can win this map despite a losing air player, but at the moment the southern side is just not looking healthy at all. Major, major problems for the southern team. Although the northern side, if Ish can win this hard enough, he has the potential to drag this game back. Right now, he is just steamrolling Laneless's Navy. And if he can break this Navy, he will be able to wipe out this whole section over here. He is sitting on Aeon, a fast T3, and some Torrents would be a good plan. That 200 range can reach back in here and knock out. This is usually where the air player builds a lot of their infrastructure, and this is within reach of the Torrent. We have 2 nukes going up for Galactic Fear as well. He does have anti-nuke, and it is not loaded, but it will be before the nuke is loaded. for Zaki Zok. Zok is doing pretty well floating his eco. Galactic is not. That is going to severely hamper his efforts. We now have a Megalith in front. I'm not sure how the Southern team is going to stop this without air control. They have a Tempest sitting on their doorstep, and then this Megalith is on its way from the front. Ukoto Ryoken is dropping to mid with his ACU to build a Galactic Colossus in anticipation of this Megalith coming through, so they'll have a pair to push. I would say that is a risky move, dropping your ACU that close to the front, but when you have this much control of your Southern Navy and you have total air control, that is going to make for a pretty easy escape for you. Galactic Fear finally taking notice of how bad this Navy is doing. Interestingly enough, he is pushing a stream of T1 bombers. I imagine he is looking for the stun on those, trying to use them to deal with all of these hover units that are causing Laneless so many problems. Laneless retreating with his destroyers back here behind his build power so that he is able to take advantage of the one stealth field that he has left. I believe there's a T3 sonar in the back here, and he's able to fire at range while these tanks are wasting their damage. Once again, do not listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. There is no T3 sonar. There is a lack of sonar coverage from Ish. That is where his sonar ends. He cannot see past that point. Galactic Fear is not going to be ready, or Galactic Colossus is not going to be ready in time to accompany that Megalith, but honestly I don't see anything to stop that Megalith. Nuke is almost done for Zok, but unfortunately for him, Galactic Fear has succeeded in loading his anti-nuke. However, if he picks off one of the sides, there is no anti-nuke over there. There is an anti-nuke on Rock. There is not any anti-nuke whatsoever on front. So he would have the option of picking off either the beach player or the front player. That nuke is headed for, sadly, headed for the air player. That was a horrible mistake. If he would have hit this Navy, this anti would not have been loaded, and that would have ended the Northern Naval game permanently. Oh, that's such a waste. So sad to see. That could have put the Southern team decidedly back in the game. They're not completely out of the game yet, but they are getting close. This is starting to look more and more like a domination by the North. Megalith coming up the center, accompanied by a small group of Manas for good measure. It's like a group of cheerleaders hanging around the college jock. Why a linebacker needs the help of all the shrimps, I do not know, but they are there for moral support. The Megalith. You know, it honestly does look like smaller siblings. 4 legs, big head. Yep, that's right. Scuttle along. I really need to reset my CPU so that I can overclock it. I just rebuilt my PC to put in a new graphics card, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard, and in the process either I bumped my CPU a little too hard and dislodged the thermal paste, or I had a problem applying it the first time. I'm not sure, but I have not gotten back to my overclock settings, so I'm still sitting on stock 3.4 with 3.8 boost, which is not enough to pull this game considering the amount of anti-air fire that there is in the north. Anti-air and Salem shots definitely bogging me down. I am going to make a mental note of this, and I will not cast another 20k map until I have my CPU back in its proper working order so that I'm able to buzz this at least at +2. I think I can confidently say, though, that this game, barring a miracle from Zaki-Zak or from Ish, I think this game is about hit its end. Here we've seen a Seton's crush by Galactic Fear. This is why Galactic Fear gets to keep his name. He is undoubtedly one of the best players of this map, and he was able to just completely trash the Southern team early game. Although, like I said, I really sincerely wish that Zaki-Zak had used that nuke to help out the Northern Navy, because this would have been a completely different game. At that point, he was on a roll, pushing forward with his plans to just steamroll over Lanilus, and he had almost succeeded. Now, with some help from air, a comeback from Lanilus, and with Newton in the water at the moment, he is pushing T3 battleships at the moment, not doing a really good job for himself considering how much cover spam there is. Battleships horribly ineffective against cover spam. But Ish is going to be slowly pushed back into his corner by this double team on Navy. I am assuming that Newton per square meter is Pascal because of the comments in the chat. This Megalith is virtually unopposed walking through the beach player's base.
Strategic launch detected.
I am thinking that this is going to be over quickly because there is no way that this can drag on a whole lot longer when you have a Megalith and no air control. A Megalith on your doorstep and no air control. And the heroic Mantis. Here we have it, folks, the strength of the Cyberians. At minute 33, we have Cyberan Mantis demolishing a T3 base. I don't know that I have seen this exact scenario playing out before, but this is definitely something that you don't see every day. That's right, you need to run inside that shield and kill it because you do not have the damage per second to do a real good job of killing off that T3 shield's health. There you go. The second nuke has launched. Not sure where it's headed. I can't see the command. Galactic Fear commenting that Zak is spamming nukes at him. He is right, but he does have enough assistance. There is another one loaded. He is going to have to build another anti-nuke, though, because with the two nukes down here, they can potentially get through. GC popping out of the water for Hokoto Ryoken. Hokoto is murdering the mass game at the moment. 523 steady income, far surpassing any of the other players except for Galactic Fear, who is still a whopping 53 behind on mass, pulling 470.
Strategic launch detected.
Simultaneous nukes by Zaki-Zak and Galactic Fear. The nuke hitting the same spot over and over for Zak. which is definitely the standard course of action when you're playing with nukes. You want to deplete the anti-nuke in one spot and then eventually land a hit. Zaki Zak does have two loaded. It looks like that nuke is headed southward as fast as it can possibly fly. And here's what we get when air players are lobbing nukes at each other. This is the approximate exact center point of the map right here. Right in this area. And pass. That is pretty dang close to exact timing. This GC is probably going to go down to all of this point defense, but not before he kills Khajiit, and that is going to be terrible for Zak, because even though this nuke is not going to land, oh my goodness, the GC killed the nuke defense. This is going to hurt so badly. So badly. That was a bad nuke, but this is going to be worse. Zak, why did you not have a backup anti? Why did you only have one? He is going to stand there and take the nuke in the face. Decided that life is not worth living when there is this much interference with your game time. Choosing to bow out to nuclear applause. That is beach and air toasted for the southern team. Galactic Fear and Ryokan doing their jobs and doing them well. It is now down to Ish. Well, basically just Ish, because yes, Foley has nothing left and Foley is dead. We have a Caesar coming from Bukuro Ryokan. I love that name. It is so much fun to say. I hope I'm saying it right. I feel like I'm casting an anime cartoon. My brain runs on weird tangents, so I'm going to pull a plug right here. If you have not watched the series Death Note, watch it now. I realized that I am extremely late to the party, but I finally broke down and listened to some people who were telling me that I had to watch Death Note, and I watched Death Note, and I now regret not seeing it before because that show is freaking amazing. Ish getting his hair a little singed. Okay, a lot singed. Caesar finishing off the game for the northern team. Brilliant play by Galactic Fear, just overwhelming force from the start to the finish. Definitely the star of the northern team, and I have to say Ish did an extremely good job countering this Navy. I thought he had lost it very early, and he came back in a strong way until he got double teamed. Well played, both teams. And now, guys, you have a Setons game. I will not be doing another one of these for a very long time because Setons games are not good for casting. And also, I need to fix my CPU first. But I thank you for watching this game. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. And until next time, I bid you a fond farewell.